And the first thing you'll notice is I am not a public speaker. I am a housewife. And I take great pride in that too. But when I came into West Virginia, I came as a 17-year-old. And most of you, if you'll go back that far, you'll remember we were very young and impressionable at that age. And when I came in West Virginia as a young bride at 17, there was many things that caught my attention. But one thing that caught my attention more than anything else was the love that the people had for their lands. They would take you in as though you belonged to them, and they would teach you about the land, the plants that were there. Many times I've walked with my mother-in-law, and she would identify the plants on the hill to me. She would always have a certain time of year that she picked wild greens, and she would cook them up for us, and she'd let us know the proper way of doing it. She taught me how to can my first can or my first jar of green beans. I also had a little lady that lived down in front of me that was probably about 96 when she died. And she taught me how to make homemade apple butter in an outside kettle. And I want you to know, we starved those neighbors to death. They could smell that apple butter for miles. But you know, those were the things that I grasped when I came in as a 17-year-old. But more than that was their acceptance of me, a stranger from another state that came in. And my first experience was with a bridal shower. You know how they'll give you a shower when you come into a family? Well, my husband is a family of 10, and that's just a very small family to them. And I had come from an even smaller family of 3, so I was overwhelmed. But when I got to that bridal shower, there were 75 people present. And then I was really overwhelmed. And these people didn't know me, but they hugged me. They kissed me on the cheek, and they said, "Mrs. Bragg, we're so proud to have you with us." They brought me gifts and didn't even know my first name, a lot of them. But you know, from that day to this, I have never had any kind of whim that if I needed any one of those 75 that I couldn't pick up the phone and call them. If I had a need and I was on the side of the road, that they wouldn't stop and help me. And a lot of you sitting here can remember back 15, 20 years ago how it was for a neighbor to help a neighbor. Well, I'm here to tell you, my people in West Virginia still do that. Strong, they love strong. But more important, the people of West Virginia fight strong. And that's what I found out. When we started having all the trouble, I felt really bad because I didn't know what to do. I just knew I was one housewife that saw a situation coming that was going to tear up everything that I had longed for, everything that I had came to West Virginia to find. And my little community that I lived in for over 20 years was going to be destroyed with mountaintop removal. And there was going to be ponds that were going to be behind my house that would destroy everything that I had. And I don't live in a fancy house. And I don't own a lot of property. I have 12 acres, and a lot of that's mountainside. But every morning I could go out and I could look outside and I could see a beautiful mountain that had mountain flowers, that had beautiful trees on it. And now I get to look back and look at this monstrous thing that looks like somebody came in and had a war right in behind my house. So yes, I was desperate to know what to do. And you know, we got the media involved, and I thank God many days for people like Penny Loeb and the Charleston Daily News that came out and talked with us. And I thank God for all the environmentalists and the activists and the housewives and all the people just like me that said enough is enough. Could you imagine getting 25 and 30 phone calls a day? I did. Sometimes I get so tired of picking up the phone now I didn't know what I was going to say. Older people had no water. Older people saying, "Trish, they're bombarding my house. It's falling apart. My bathtub dropped 6 inches yesterday." And a lot of you would say, "Well, I'd just call somebody to come fix it." You're talking people live on a limited income, some of them $600 a month. How are they going to fix those damages? What are they going to do? And more important, why should they? Isn't that what we have the government for, to protect us? And so as the phone calls came in and the media came in, and the frustration got higher, the threats got higher. We were threatened on the phone. We were threatened in person. At one point, I was ran off the road by 2 coal trucks. But more than making me afraid. It made me angry. Because we have a right to live in the culture I chose for my children. We have a right to live in that little hollow and that little hill and say, this is my home. And it doesn't matter what it costs. It doesn't matter how big or how fancy it is. This is my home. And you as a coal industry, or you as any other industry that comes in, you only have a right to deal with the land that you own. You don't have a right to cross over and tear mine up. You know, I was amazed at how many people from the coal industry, from the coal miners, the coal truck drivers, on up to the top that said, oh, we make your land better. When we get through taking off the tops of the mountains, you're going to have better water. You're going to have a place to put a factory. You're going to have a place to do this with and do that with. But what they forgot to tell us is we were going to eat dust. Our houses was going to crack. And the DEP was going to come in and say, oh, excuse me, I can't prove that the mines did this. Can you imagine somebody going out and tearing up your home and looking at you and say, oh, we're not responsible, and the government backing them up? I don't think I had ever been so discouraged in my life. And then we went and we started going to these meetings, and the governor set up a task force. And I thought, all right, let's get them out of those offices down there at the Capitol. Let's get them out into the field. Let them see what I see. Let them face the people like I have faced them for the last year or two. And they went out and they looked and they saw. And they reported back what they saw. Actually, truthfully, reported back what they saw. It was a thrill of my life. Because you can imagine how refreshing it was to run into the trial lawyers for public justice, because lawyers had not been real nice to me up to this point. We couldn't find one. Nobody wanted to take our case. What case, you say? So it was real nice when you guys came along. You know, in the last meeting, I told everybody sitting there at that board meeting, you are like a knight in shining armor. I take that back. You are many knights in shining armor. You don't have any idea how it feels to know that somebody believes in what you're doing and that it's right and it's okay for you to fight back. Can you imagine not feeling like you had the right to fight back for your own home, your own land, your own children, and their inheritance? But you gave us that right. You came in at a time where I was so frustrated. If anybody could have been willing to give up, that was at the point I was. And you came in and said, not only will I come in, I'll take my time, I'll take my energy, I'll take my resources, and I will fight for you. And why? It wasn't for money, thank God, because I didn't have any. It's because you believed in the American way. I used to think the American dream was a joke. If you'd asked me in '97 if I believed in it, I'd have told you no. But you gave me back that faith. You gave me back that strength to keep on fighting back. And you know, they don't ignore us now. You know, thank God DEP will listen when we call. They actually come out on site a lot more than what they used to. And believe it or not, we get decisions that is for us. And you look at me like, well, now, Trish, that's not amazing. That's the law. I've been fighting the law for 5 or 6 years now, and it wasn't on my side until now. Until we brought it out into the public and we said, listen, I have a right to live. Do you make a difference? Yes, you do.